Hello there. I would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the lands on which we are meeting and pay our deepest respects to elders past, present and emerging. I'm Kerryn Miller, and as co-chair of the Victorian community of the Association for Coaching, I'm thrilled to welcome Nicole Bartholomeusz as our guest today. Nicole has been the Chief Executive of CoHealth since 2019, having served in a range of senior leadership roles in community health since 2006. I first met Nicole in 2007, not long after she joined Western Region Health Centre. In those early years, our work together was focused on growing confidence and authority in her leadership, transitioning back into executive roles as a new mum, then managing the merger of 3 community health organisations and the related integration of 3 entities to form CoHealth. I recall being struck by Nicole's instinctive commercial acumen, combined with her deep care and compassion for the human experience, her strong commitment to social justice and health equity, and passion for people to be able to live their best lives. And this has played out as a constant theme in Nicole's career, ensuring that respect and dignity are maintained, whether it be in her commitment to providing high quality healthcare to people, programs, or those who might otherwise miss out, addressing the social determinants of poor health, like poverty, housing, and education, and of course, leading difficult and complex organisational change. Nicole is uniquely positioned to bring a strong understanding of the Australian healthcare system and involvement in policy debate and healthcare reform. And her work in this area has resulted in successfully influencing funding for health services, leading health system redesign, together with being a trusted and collaborative partner to deliver high quality outcome-based population health models. And I'm sure our podcast watchers or listeners can do a little bit more research on you, Nicole. But today really is about you and your own personal journey with coaching following the corporate roundtable conversation that we held a few weeks ago with members of the Australian corporate community. So welcome.
Thanks, Kerryn. It's really great to be here.
Nicole, you shared how you have worked on your own inner dialogue, your own shadow side, and you talked about perfectionistic thinking in the conversation that we had, making sense of how your leadership stories, your own thinking have been formed, and how you've really developed and transformed how you show up as a leader as a result of your own experience, of course, in engaging in coaching with a professional coach for more than 12 years. I'm really curious, what would you what would you be seeing in an organisation that has a perfectionistic culture? And what does that look like when coaching behaviours are embedded into the daily conversations to deal with that perfectionistic thinking?
Thanks, Kerryn. I'm going to start at the end by answering that question. And so through my leadership, I'm really seeking both the opportunity for people to be able to live their best lives. And so in leading an organisation, I'm particularly interested in the experience of our workforce, the experience of our staff, and how that experience, a positive experience, can actually enable the people that we serve to live their best lives. And so in thinking about an organisational culture where staff have the best work experience possible, I'm really seeing the need for a workforce that can take up their decision making, can step into their own authority, can be creative and courageous, and have strong trust. And so to have those qualities in an organizational culture, you really need to be able to sort of lean into developing and enabling a culture that supports trust, courage, and creativity, innovation. And so if you think about my sort of individual characteristics of being a perfectionist for a long time, that's a real tension between that perfectionistic style or perfectionism style and wanting to create a culture where staff have the best experience possible. So it's really taken me, I suppose, 12 years of coaching to be on my own personal journey of understanding what that characteristic looks like, how it shows up, but what I need to do to work on that to ensure that I am enabling and building in others the opportunity to be those things that aren't perfectionists in their traits. Yeah, that makes sense.
It's quite a journey, and really does require, significant energy. And being in the role of chief executive of an organisation that has been really at the heart of and core of the COVID response, in particular, more recently, I'm just wondering, how do you find the energy to engage with that level of self-insight, but also looking at what you're modelling as a leader?
I think the benefit has been that I've been doing this work for 12 plus years, as you said in your introduction, and that this is not a new thing for me. And so I'm very aware of it. I'm very aware of when it shows up, and I'm able to acknowledge it, know that it's there. But now I also have the tools and tips and tricks to actually be able to actively manage it. And so it's always there, but it's how you respond to it and how you're able to manage it. I think that makes the difference. And so just having that really strong sort of conscious awareness that it's there, and actively working to ensure that you're not falling back into those behaviours has been really important, particularly over the past 2 years. As you said, like the work through the pandemic has been challenging and intense, and it's really required the organisation to be creative in its response, to really step into work that we've never stepped into before. It's really required staff, the frontline staff on the ground who have been delivering those services, to actually identify what the solutions are, to be innovative. And so I've really been leaning into that. So that's, I think, what has been so successful over the last 2.5 years, is really allowing the strong trust that exists within the organisation, the courage and the innovation to flourish. And I've really been conscious of and working on the traits of perfectionism. So, the temptation, I guess, that's there to be really detailed, or to be overly concerned with getting things right. It's a constant work in progress. I do like to call myself reformed perfectionist these days.
Yeah, so I guess it's that sense of it's always there for you, but it doesn't have you in the way
That's right.
it had.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And so when you think about, that's a lovely example of the personal expression, I guess, of what it means to be in the detail, as you've described. So what does it mean then as a leader not to be in the detail? How would you be showing up to others in both into staff and stakeholders in managing that or maintaining the reformed status of being a perfectionist as opposed to feeding it?
What's been important to me has been to sort of take that coaching practice, which we've shared over the past 12 years, and to use that practice with the people that I work most closely with. And so it's been about sort of developing my curiosity, asking the right questions, being there as a support to my team, but really developing those strong working relationships, have building trust with the people that are in my team, to enable them to do the work that they need to do, but also to know that I'm here to support them, and through taking that sort of coaching approach of curiosity and asking questions, also satisfying what I need to know in terms of sort of governance oversight of the organisation. So I think that's been a real, that's been a real shift over the years. And also too, I think the shift when I moved into my deputy CE role and now the CE role is that working with executives is a different relationship to when you're a manager working with staff. And so I've really needed to shift the way that I work as well over time.
Yeah. And in what way have you had to make that shift?
I think it's about it's recognizing the different levels of responsibility and accountability that you have at different parts of or different levels of the organization. So it's really been about being attuned to that, and really sort of enabling those roles to take up the sort of accountability and responsibility for which they have. So it's almost, I suppose, my journey when I first started working with you, Kerryn, around having confidence in my ability as a leader. It's also about instilling that confidence in their ability to lead their respective areas. And so I think that's been a really important shift over the years as well.
And when you think about then how you enable and support the leadership team or the executive team to then do the same with their teams, what are your sort of experiences or plans perhaps around embedding those coaching behaviours within at all levels of the organisation?
So as you know, I'm a really big fan of the Human Synergistics LSI tool. And so every member of the leadership team has had an experience with that tool. We're also rolling that tool out further within the organisation, to give people the opportunity to understand what their style is, but then to attach that to coaching so that they can work to their optimal leadership style. And so that's really been important in terms of developing a common language within the executive team. So we talk about the styles that we want to show up within the team. We talk about the styles that that we want less of. And so that's been really useful to have that so as a common platform, have a common language that we use when we're talking about our behaviours and our culture. And so really terrific now to see the directors in the organisation also now completing their LSIs. And, my vision is really to take that right through the organisation, to understand the culture of the whole organisation and the way leaders in the organisation step into their leadership role. I've, for some time now been thinking as a healthcare organisation, with all of the challenges of workforce prior to the pandemic, was that we really needed to define and work in new and different ways. That we'd over time become a very hierarchical organisation because of the merger of three and because of our size, but that really isn't bringing joy to staff in the organisation. We'd also become overly complex, and so we've been on this journey to really transform the way we work, to make co-health easy and to enable staff to work in new and different ways, and to really be taking up their authority, to really be working to their top of scope of practice is the term that I use, so that they're, the right decisions are being made in the right places. And so it is an absolute journey for the whole organisation to be moving in this way, and the executive team really starting and leading that work has been so critical.
And I can imagine that there's been varied responses to that, and how important it is, as you say, to have the executive team championing and committed to that way of being, or to that way of shifting towards. How have the board and other key stakeholders, which would be a number that you would have at CoHealth, how have they reacted?
The reaction's been really positive. So it is a current part of our strategic plan, so organisational transformation and new ways of working. So the board are absolutely signed up and on board with that. And we've had really positive feedback from stakeholders as well around the way we are seeking to transform the way that we work, the relationship between the way we work and client or community experience, but also how we bring ourselves to partnerships. And so we have many partnerships right across CoHealth, whether they're service delivery partners or funding partners. And so the shift in the ways we work will also positively impact our partnerships as well. So it's been really positive. And lots of people external to the organisation being really interested in, the why and the how. We're doing that internally within the organisation. There's been some really early adopters of change sort of working practices, and other areas of the organisation that just need some more time and support to really shift their thinking. When you're working with an organisation of our size, around about 1,000 people, from all different walks of life, from all different levels of training and education, you really need to have a very kind of considered and tailored approach for the different parts of the organisation. It's definitely not a one size fits all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And again, bringing it back to coaching, what would be an example where coaching mindset or skill set is important to be embedding at all levels of the organisation?
Absolutely. In terms of working with our leaders, I see that as really, really critical. So having a model of coaching for leaders working with leaders, but also then for leaders that are working with staff. So it's across our clinical services, actually across all of our services, we have a supervision model in place. And so if we're actually sort of just tweaking that supervision model to make it to take a coaching approach to that supervision, then I think there's a real opportunity there to actually embed coaching practice. So particularly, right across our clinical areas, there is that sort of clinical supervision models are in place. But I think applying a coaching approach would be really useful, so that it's enabling the person that's participating in the session or the supervision session to really bringing the ideas and the solutions forward. So it's really about encouraging that development to occur.
And how does that then play out when you talk about what your stakeholders are seeing? How do they see coaching behaviours show up in the moment in their interactions with the organisation?
I think because we're still in the process of trickling it down and embedding it, they're probably not yet seeing that direct experience on the ground in terms of service delivery. We're certainly, with new services that we are developing going forward, putting those models in place. So there's really strong interest around, what's that going to look like and how's that going to work, and what do you see as the perceived benefits to the clients? So lots of those conversations that are currently happening.
That sounds like the next important phase of your journey around the coaching culture.
Absolutely.
Just finally, Nicole, coming back to your own personal journey, do you have any tips or suggestions around managing your own self-care that would be useful for those leaders listening or watching this podcast to consider in holding yourselves where you're modeling, but also on your own growth journey, and then looking at the whole system and how you can actually influence the system. So yeah, what kind of self-care strategies might you engage in?
So coaching, I think, is definitely a big part of the self-care. So having a trusted person that you can work with, that is available, is on the journey with you, has been so important. And having that coach that I know that I can reach out to when I just want to check something out, or talk about a particular challenge that I'm experiencing, has been so important. And that really fits alongside all of those other usual self-care that we should have in place for ourselves. So, that eating well, sleeping well, exercising well, which I think are all really, really important. And I know that when one of those things isn't quite there, that I really feel the impact. So particularly the physical exercise. If I'm not getting enough physical exercise in, by the end of the week, I know that I'm my teacup's full or overflowing, and I need to prioritize the physical activities. So I think having the regular coaching in place, but also the eating well, sleeping well, exercising well, really critical. But also just working in that really authentic way in the organisation and with my team as well, and giving my team permission to let me know when they're seeing me not show up in the best way has been really wonderful as well. So that really kind of strong basis of trust there.
That's really admirable. Well, Nicole, as we bring this conversation to a close, was there anything else that you wanted to share as a result of this conversation, or perhaps reflections you had following our corporate roundtable discussion?
I think one of my passions, Kerryn, is learning, and so I think the other piece that's really enabled me to go on this self journey, but also then to apply what I've learned back into the organisation, has just been my passion for learning and reflection, and just wanting to kind of know and understand more, but also put that into practice. And I think that's really been a key when I look back, and in your introduction, what you said, we've been working together for 12 or more years. Like, it's incredible really to think about we've been working together for that long, but I think it's been a genuine interest in wanting to learn and then to apply those learnings that has really been a strong motivator for me during that time.
Lovely. Yeah. Thank you so much, Nicole. And looking forward to you again joining us at future roundtable events and continuing to connect and role model what it takes to really create a coaching culture. So thank you.
Thanks so much for your time, Kerryn.